Here is what we're going to be building next. It's going to be a very simple quiz application here. So in this case here, notice we have a nice image here of a flag, and then we have a question. So this is some sort of a true or false situation here. So there is a text: the U.S. Declaration of Independence was adopted in 1776. So if I say true, because that's true, it says here correct. You saw real quick there, and it says correct there. It's very good. If I say false, it's going to say that's incorrect. And can go next, and I can say true, and that's correct. We can keep going next. Let me just say false for a second. It says incorrect. Okay, so there's this next button here, which keeps iterating through our array or list containing all of these questions here. The idea here is that you can take this app and make your own, so you can build any kind or any type of quizzes out there. So this is the starting point for you. So this is what we're going to be building and making improvements as we go. Okay, let's go ahead back to our project that we've been using. I'm going to create another class here. In this case, it's going to be a stateful widget again. So let's say S like that. We want a stateful. I'm going to call this quiz app. And in our container, we are going to pass a scaffold. This time, I'm going to use an app bar. And for our app bar, I'm going to add a title. The text is going to say something like true citizen, such. And I also want to make sure that this is center title to be true, like this. And while we're here, we're going to make a background to say colors. I'm going to say blue, gray. And outside of our app bar for our body, it's going to be a container. And this container here will have a child, which will then have a column like this. Let's see, column. Very good. And I want to actually add a overall background here for our entire view to have the same color. So I'm going to say colors, blue, gray as such. So I'm going to save this. Let's go ahead and give it a run. Or if you want, you can always also run on iOS, only if you have Mac and you have Xcode installed, as we discussed before. Okay, this might take a few seconds. And just like that, you can see we have the true citizen and nice background, and we have app bar. Before we move forward here, we're going to need to add a few assets. In fact, just one asset to start with, which is an image. To add image to our application, it's very simple in Flutter. So what we need to do, of course, is to add the actual image folder. Now we need to pay close attention where we're adding this folder or this directory. So far, we've been adding everything inside of our lib. As you see here, we have our UI, util, and our main.dart. That's where we have our main.dart. But for our image file, we actually have to go in the root of our project and add that file or directory. So I'm going to say right click. This is very important. I'm going to say new. I want new directory. And let's name this images. Okay, now we have our image as such. And you can see it gives us this very nice icon of an image to signify that it knows that we're talking about images. Now we need to add an image. I already have the image, so I'm going to go ahead and copy it and bring it all in here. And the beauty, you can actually copy the image from your file or folder in your computer and paste it all in and just say OK. And in a second, you should see that we have this flag that image. If you double click, it should show the image. Once we have that, we need to actually connect this images folder, because we can have more than one image, to our framework, so that Flutter knows that this image is registered in this application, so we can actually use it in this project. To do that, we actually have to look at a file that we never really talked about much. Notice down here, there's a lot of different files. The important one here is the PubSpec YAML. So if you double click here, you see that there's a lot of things going on. Let's go through real quick. Most of this stuff here is very self-explanatory, but I'd like to explain you real quickly what's going on here. As you see at the top, it says name, and this is the first Flutter name, the first Flutter app, I should say. So this is what we added when we created this project. So the name of the project is first Flutter app. And you notice it is indeed what we have here at the top. And we have a description because we didn't put anything. It just gave this generic a new Flutter app. Of course, you can change from here or when you start creating your application. Okay, and it tells us here the following defines the version and build number of the application, and there's a lot of information here. So this was actually generated when we first created our project. So there's the version, and there's the environment, okay, the SDK and so forth, and there are dependencies. Dependencies, think of them as libraries that our project depends on for it to run. Obviously, the main dependency is Flutter, which has the SDK named Flutter, okay, and we can also add other items for iOS styling and many other things. In this case, Cupertino icons, and there's the version here. So that means we are using as a dependency in our project Cupertino icons. Cupertino is the iOS side of things. And we have the dev dependencies here. We have the Flutter test, which we haven't looked at. And down here, it says the following section is specific to Flutter. So now we're saying that one of the main dependencies that this must use the material design to true. This is true because that means it uses material design. And most importantly, at the bottom here, we have this assets area that's commented out. But notice also it says images flag.png. This is actually what I've changed earlier, right? It usually has a different name, something like a.ham JPEG like this. I actually changed it to flag. So this is where we set up our assets. Assets in this case being images. You can also add audio and so many other types of assets, but in this case we're talking about images. So in order for us to tell our project that it indeed has access to our images folder, we have to uncomment this here. So let's go ahead and comment all of that, and voila, we have it. Now, one of the things you will realize is that the YAML file, the pubspec file here, is very sensitive, meaning that you have to have things correctly situated, indented in order for things to work. In this case here, we have assets, and there's this dash space images, and then / flag.png. So it has to be the same name as we have here for our image, for obvious reasons. If we had another image, of course, we will do the same thing here. We'll just uncomment this and keep adding more and more. And once we've added the image, I'm going to save this, but we have to get it. So we're going to say packages.get, just click here, and let's see if that works. And things worked fine. Now, to invoke our image, we can go to our main, actually our home here, and I can come down here and just say image. Actually, I have to say children. I mean, inside of a column. And let's go ahead and say invoke an image that asset. So there's different ways to get image we've seen before, but the one that we're going to be using right now is the image that asset. It makes sense because this is an asset that we've added. So that's what we need. And for that, we have to pass the path where the image is. So in this case here, it's going to be images / flag.png. And we can pass a few properties. I can say width of the image is going to be 250 and height is going to be, let's say, 180. Let's save this and see if it's going to work. Now you can see the image is showing there. Like I said, the pubspec.yaml can be a little bit tricky sometimes. Make sure that everything is set up. And one way to know that everything is good in terms of the code that's written here is make sure that the assets actually lined up with the user's material design like that. They have to be lined up. If I move this a little bit to the right, if I save this and say pubs get, I may end up having issues. As you see, it says assets expected to keep parsing block mapping, so there's a problem there. So you have to make sure that everything is aligned, otherwise you're going to run into issues, as you very well saw here. So I'm going to put that back like this. So save. Always remember to say packages get to make sure that everything is correct. Okay, and you can see there it is. We still see our image. Very good. So very easy to add images into our projects. So in the next video, we're going to continue adding more things into our app.